A few months ago, I went to the first UK Dreame store opening in Birmingham, courtesy of Dreame. And whilst I was there, they showcased the brand new Dreame X50 Ultra Complete, a robot that features almost all of the innovations that you can think of from every manufacturer packaged into this one robot vacuum, including perhaps the most eye-catching feature, its ability to climb up steps. But now we're back because Dreame have asked us to take a look at the X50 Ultra Complete in the home environment to find out how it performs in the real world and to see just what it's capable of. And a little hint here, I've found it solved one massive problem I've recently had with robot vacuums. But I'll discuss more about this and the problem that it solved later in this episode. So let's dive into the absolutely insane amount of innovations they packed into this thing. Now, on a wider picture though, if you take a step back, it looks very much like any ordinary robot vacuum cleaner. It's typically round in design with the nav hat on top, which features the sensors that are used by most robovacs for mapping. But already in just a few seconds, the innovations start to creep up on you because you might notice that the nav hat is not actually here. And that's because it can do something quite special. It can retract inside its own body so that it can fit under lower obstacles, popping back out when it's finished. This is such a simple yet amazingly powerful little addition that means it can fit in many places that other robots would usually get stuck in. So all that dust and gunk that's been festering under your low sofa will finally be cleared without having to move it. Now, when lowered, it makes this robot just 89mm high, which is small. For comparison, that's actually 3mm lower than the smallest robot vacuum cleaner I've ever tested, which is crazy. Now, when the nav hat lowers, it utilises an AI camera on the front to avoid obstacles and navigate under the furniture. But what if it's dark? Because under furniture, it's often pretty dark. So how does it see with its AI vision in the pitch black? And if you've guessed that it has its own headlight, then you'd be spot on. At night, or when it gets dark under furniture, it switches on its headlight beam to light the way so that the vision AI can accurately detect its surroundings. This is another excellent touch and one that ensures that you can use the retracting nav hat in any lighting condition. Thing is, I know that this feature of dropping the nav hat into the body to create a really short device will already be a big reason a lot of people will be looking to purchase this particular RoboVac, as height is always generally an area of criticism with many others. But the innovation doesn't stop here. There's actually two other things that can retract and extend, and the first is the front side brush. And actually, this is the first time that I'm coming across this myself. This also extends out, giving a much better edge cleaning experience overall. It means that you can get into those corners to sweep the debris that others would generally miss, so that's a huge bonus. One of the rear mops as well is also capable of doing the same thing, reaching out from its body to get to the edges and corners. Now, it actually features two mops that rotate and buff the floor with water and cleaning solution that it fills up from the base station. It's just one of them that extends, which is fine from a cleaning edge perspective. You don't need both of them to do it. But I'll be transparent here and say that mopping pads like this I don't think are the best mopping system in a RoboVac. You know, I've said it before, that I'm a fan of the roller style mops for a little while now, which I think generally offer a slightly better cleaning experience. But one problem with roller mops is edge cleaning. Because roller mops don't extend right the way to the edge, you'll always get areas that remain dirty, especially right around the edges of the room. Because the mopping pad on the X50 can extend itself, it means that it can get right into those edges that otherwise wouldn't have been mopped. So at least that's a massive benefit of the extending mopping pad arm system. But it goes much further than this, because not only can it move one of the pads in and out, they can also move up and down. Very much like the nav hat, the mops can retract up towards the body by a maximum of 10mm. Now, this isn't necessarily a new innovation. It's been around for a little while. But given that this is peak tech for mopping systems, It's not surprising that Dreame have decided to include it in this. And it means that if you've got a mix of hard and soft flooring in the house, you're able to get a full floor clean, mopping the hard bits, whilst also not dragging your mops across your priceless Persian rugs. And if this wasn't enough, it can go back to the base station and completely remove its pads by itself. But it's not just the mopping system that's got all of the latest innovations. The vacuum section also has had some serious additions and arguably some even bigger ones. If we take a look at the main brush, if you're used to how robot vacuums should look, this might leave your mouth open because it actually has two main brushes, both of which rotate towards the centre to pull the dirt and debris into the middle to be suctioned into the body. This is an incredibly powerful system, and like most things on this device, is the first time that I've ever seen a brush system like this. One of the brushes is a standard bristle and the other is silicone, and they've done this because it creates a covers-all cleaning experience where the bristles are great for dust and finer debris, whilst the silicone is great for hair and larger debris. And because they're separate brushes, rather than a combined brush like in every other robot vacuum I've tested, it's a hell of a lot more efficient at cleaning. These brushes also can lift up by 5mm and are designed to do so if the robot detects liquid or residue on the floor. The reason for this is that it keeps the brushes dry and cleaner, and considering they don't get washed like the mops do when back at the station, this is another innovation that is completely necessary to create a much more advanced and intelligent cleaning experience. Even the base station is full of little innovations. In the top, you've obviously got your usual water tanks, one for clean and one for dirty, and they are quite sizable, which is to be expected because the base station is actually quite a bit bigger than others. But also, there's a hidden solution tank next to the vacuum bag, which you can fill with robot mop cleaning fluid to kill bacteria when mopping. But this isn't the only thing they've done with the base station to help eliminate bacteria. On the very, very bottom is a new cleaning and drying alcove for the mop heads they're calling the Ace Clean TM. Instead of just trickling water into a plate for the mops to spin on and then sloshing the disgusting festering dirt water around for a few minutes and hope the mops get cleaned, this actually fires 20 heated spray nozzles directly at the mops to make them much cleaner. And Dreame even let you customize how this works by letting you change the temperature of the wash up to a maximum of 80 degrees, higher than any other base station mop washing I've seen before. I think the closest is about 60. And because of the heat, it'll be the cleanest base station washing system, given that hotter water kills more bacteria. And talking about bacteria, after it's finished washing the mops, it treats the mops by drying them out to avoid smells, but also it uses UV radiation to kill any remaining bacteria both on the mop and in the dust bag, which I've also never seen on a robot vacuum before. Seriously, the amount of innovation packed into both the robot and the base station is just ridiculous. They've literally sat down around a menu of all possible features a robot vacuum cleaner could have and have just gone, yes. They've ticked the bottom of the sheet and said, that'll do. But of course, there's one more feature which I teased right at the start, and it's one that I think will attract the most people, and it's the fact that this robot has legs to climb up steps. Now look, I want to set your expectations correctly here. They're only teeny tiny legs, so we're still a long way from robots climbing up a full flight of stairs, but what they can do is provide a perfect solution to a little problem you have around the house. Quite often people might have things like a threshold that are different heights, which prevents normal RoboVacs from getting over them doing the whole house. Sometimes I've even seen it where RoboVacs have struggled to get up onto particularly high pile rugs. Well, the X50 can hoist itself up over thresholds and obstacles as high as 6 centimetres, which is actually pretty impressive. You're getting nearly as high as a cup of tea with that. But forget thresholds and thick rugs. For me, this feature has solved one huge problem. Now recently my 1-year-old has started walking, and you know what babies are like at that age. and they start to walk around independently, they are literally trying to hurt or maim themselves at every available opportunity, knowingly or otherwise. So I've had to put a baby gate on the kitchen to stop him from getting near the copious amounts of dangerous objects I keep in there. But what that's meant is that my robot vacuum cleaner, a device that has its place in the kitchen next to my bins, has been basically put in jail. It's unable to leave because the baby gate has a threshold. So imagine my delight that now the X50 can actually launch itself over the baby gate like Free Willy leaping the sea wall to freedom. It means that I can keep my child out of the kitchen while simultaneously not having to remove the entire baby gate every time I want to run a cleaning cycle. So a round of applause here for Dreame. Look, if you have children and have a baby gate, this is the best robot vacuum cleaner that you can buy, and there's almost no contest. Honestly, I can't praise this solution enough. And the thing is, the whole experience is like this. It's full of every solution you can think of for the home, packed with every innovation it possibly can fit into its body. And it's meant that the experience is way above, as a whole, than almost anything I've tested, and genuinely, I've really struggled to find anything to criticise about it. Maybe that's because of the sheer amount of cutting-edge tech it has. It's ended up essentially blinding me somewhat. Or maybe it really is such a solid experience that there isn't anything bad worth noting. But I guess if I was to really squeeze the blood out of the stone here, I mentioned earlier that I'm a big fan of roller style mops, so it would have been nice to have had perhaps one of those. But then there's so many innovations from a mopping and cleaning element with this one that it's certainly one of the best mopping pad systems I've tried. There's almost nothing that competes with it. The other thing I would say is that it would have been nice to have had 2 front side brushes. Not a deal breaker, of course, but I find from an experience that having 2 tends to be a smidgen more efficient. And I guess the last thing that I would say is that the base station is quite big. With all of its wonders and innovations, with great power has come great size. It's quite a bit bigger than other options out there, which may limit you on where you're able to place it, especially if you've got a smaller house. But for those small comments, this thing is an absolute powerhouse. It's got everything you could find from robot vacuum cleaners right now and more. And what's even more surprising is the price. Its RRP is just $1,299, which in itself is an excellent price, although when I checked there was a small discount for pre-ordering, as I've actually managed to get hold of this pre-release to share my thoughts with you. So if you want the current price, check the link in the description. But even at its RRP, I can't quite believe it. Sure, there's still a lot of money, but it really is the absolute cutting edge of robot cleaners, yet it's cheaper than quite a few of the higher end options out there that pack less than half of the innovations that this has. So it's for that reason that I'm going to give it one of the illustrious STU'S Reviews Gold Star stickers. For that very reason. This is a fantastic little device, and it's a really forward piece of technology in this niche. But what do you guys think? Is the X50 Ultra Complete an absolute powerhouse, or do you think that there's perhaps too many bells and whistles? You can never have too many. But let us know what you think in the comments below so we can all have a good chinwag over it. And if my episode has helped you decide if this is for you or not, then do return the favour and hit that subscribe button. But other than that, guys, I'll see you back for another episode of STU'S Reviews soon.